stronghold in the wild Sierra Maestre Mountains, Cuba's Fidel Castro emerged triumphant after 2 years of guerrilla warfare against the Batista regime. The revolution that began with Castro a fugitive, practically alone, landing with 82 followers, to be nearly wiped out by government forces, ended with the flight of dictator Fulgencio Batista and the entry into Havana of rebel forces to be acclaimed by the city. The forces of Castro's 26th of July movement, named for the anniversary of his first attack on the regime in 1953, have grown vastly, their power enlarged by captured and surrendered army weapons. Nearly 2 years of hit-and-run warfare aimed at toppling Batista's government by paralyzing Cuba's economy culminated in victory as 1958 ended. Castro met an all-out government offensive with a counterattack, and in the battle for the key rail center of Santa Clara, won the crucial victory. Batista resigned to prevent more bloodshed and fled the country. His departure touched off wild rejoicing in the capital as the first elements of rebel forces entered Havana. At first, the celebration was peaceful as shouting, cheering crowds surged through the city. Then the temper of the throng changed, and an ugly mob ranged the streets. Its prime targets, the symbols of the overthrown regime: the gambling casinos, the parking meters, the homes and businesses of Batista's cronies. Six years of surface prosperity and government corruption, of repression and police brutality, bred explosive discontent. Now Batista has fled. A new leader is on the scene, Fidel Castro. In many ways an unknown quantity in his politics and policies, but certain to be dominant in Cuba's new era, just begun.
The beating of Eloy Escagedo Lliraldi, 1961, Cuba. Another of the events that impacted the Aguadenses' opinion was the beating of Eloisito Escagedo. One day in 1961, a fire arose at the chicken farm located in the Federal District. And as an innate thing in human beings, dozens of Aguadenses went to see the fire, and among them was Eloy Escagedo Lliraldi. While the fire was still raging, Eloy retired from the scene and went to the barbershop owned by Panchito Villavicencio on Calle Real. As he waited almost half an hour, suddenly a policeman, a militia officer, and a militiaman appeared at the barbershop and told Eloy to accompany them. When they walked out on the sidewalk in front of the barbershop, the policeman with his regulation uniform said to Eloy, "So you see, worm." And with that, threw a punch, and the militia officer, as well as the other militiaman, joined the beating. Some passers-by stopped to see, but since the terror of the state was already in operation, and those who struck Eloy were military, they dared not intervene. All this happened in seconds, when they had Eloy on the ground and the policeman grabbed his head in order to strike him against the sidewalk curb. Suddenly, Panchito Villavicencio, the barber, appeared with razor in hand and told them energetically, "Release him." The police and the other two soldiers stopped beating Eloy and withdrew. They left without following through with what they were there to do, which was to take Eloy away under some supposed accusation. The barber Panchito Villavicencio was always a communist. The news spread throughout the town, since Eloy, apart from being a known minor, was not a violent youth. Later, a sympathizer of the regime, and that until then was supposed to be a fervent religious Catholic believing in justice, she commented to Eloy's relatives in order to justify the beating that it had happened because he was laughing at the farm fire. But when they took her husband's business from him, only then did the lady apologist for the regime curse the regime. According to the negligence with which the regime did things, it's possible that the chicken farm fire was due to a short circuit, a thrown-out cigarette, or other causes, but not precisely to sabotage it, since no one nor any organization took responsibility for the event. The laugh was, of course, an uncertain thing, but if it had been true, that did not justify the police beating a minor, even if he was of legal age.